Well, basically what I saw like today is kind of hastily filmed trailer that they apparently put together for this Tommy Wiseau movie that he's just calling Big Shark. And it's like Tommy and then Greg Sestero, who of course infamously was Tommy's co-star in The Room, and this other guy walk out of a bar, and then all of a sudden the street underneath them floods with like a couple of feet of water, and then they turn and you see a giant, like terrible looking CGI shark come right at them.
I cannot wait for this movie.
And then the titles come up, Big Shark. But then some other reporters said that it's possible that it's just one big joke and that Tommy just paid to make it to like either drum up some interest financially in making the full movie or maybe just for fun. You know, it's Tommy Wiseau. Like, how do you really know what he's planning?
Yeah, who cares? It's a win-win situation.
But what I really want to see is the movie that he has made with Greg called Best Friends, with the R in brackets, so it's like Best Fiends, Best Friends. They've been working on it for a while. There was some talk of them releasing it in like 2 parts for a little bit, but I haven't heard anything about like actual screenings or just the trailer basically, which was fantastic. So it's almost like they handed Tommy a way bigger budget and actually allowed him to, and like kept him from destroying things along the way. And they seem to have made a competent thing, but with all of the crazy, weird humor of The Room at the same time.
Are you excited about this, or are you like kind of in despair?
I am sort of excited about it. Like,
yeah. Okay, good. So we're all on the same page here.
I want to see what happens when Tommy works with people who know what they're doing. I don't know. Still really curious about this thing, Best Friends.
Of course. We're curious to see how big of a train wreck it is. So
release it, Tommy. Come on.
All right, let's start the show.
Welcome back to the Extra Buttery Podcast, our 3rd episode of 2019, episode 43. And this time on the show, we're going to be doing a little bit of a catch-up with the awards race in general. The Oscars are only about 2 weeks away, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the movies we've seen recently, some of the winners of the precursor awards, and what that means for the probable winners of the Oscars. Then we're going to touch on a couple of Netflix films that came out recently with a lot of buzz before they came out, but we'll talk about whether it actually delivers on that buzz. So Velvet Buzzsaw, IO, and Polar. And then we'll touch on a little bit of news coming out of the Television Critics Association press tour that's been going on the past week. Some information about some hotly anticipated shows coming down the pipeline. And we might even touch on the Disney-Fox merger, which has been leading to some scary headlines in the past couple of days. But coming to you from Toronto, my name is Robert Snow, and joining me from Vancouver is my co-host, Jason Chen. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
It's cold.
It's cold in Vancouver?
Yeah, it's -5. That's pretty cold.
Yeah, it's pretty cold for you guys. Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty cold anywhere. Like, it's not like state of emergency cold.
No.
You got to put on a couple layers cold.
If it was last year, I probably would sympathize with you a little bit more, because I was like stuck on wearing this green wool overcoat all the time, this kind of like a pea coat looking thing, which I still love, but I was convincing myself that was a suitable winter jacket, and I've since gone and bought a fancy parka with like Gore-Tex on the outside and goose down on the inside, and it is like next level warm. So I feel like I can take on anything that Canada throws at me at this point.
We should throw out to the company so we can get some free jackets. Such a glowing review, Rob.
Absolutely. No, but we're still kind of in the thick of the awards race right now, and this will probably be the last episode where we're kind of actively talking about it, because by the time the Oscars are actually announced and we have another episode of the podcast queued up, stuff will probably have simmered down by that point. You know, that people tend not to care too much about the Oscars the day after they're announced.
I care.
You care. Well, yeah, you care. I care. But I mean, like, how many people out there are actually keeping track of who wins these things after all? Like, I can't remember who won 5 years ago. That's what IMDb is for.
Well, I mean, it just depends on if you have any money on these.
Oh yeah, I suppose if you're in one of those crazy jackpot Oscar ballots at your workplace, then it's probably
Not even. You can go to Vegas and bet on
oh
these
yeah,
things.
okay. I mean, I would not put my money in the hands of a voting body as fickle as the Academy, but there you go.
No, but you've been pretty good with your predictions, which are online, by the way. So I feel like if you gave me your picks and I go to Vegas, and I can probably win some money.
Yeah, at least in those major categories that I pay attention to. But as we were talking about last episode, the kind of undercard, as it were, of the Oscar predictions is one that I'm always kind of bad at.
Right. But
Yeah.
What do you want to do first? Directors Guild or Screen Actors Guild?
Well, let's go chronological, I guess. So the Screen Actors Guild, where it was announced, I think it was about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, January 27th.
This is the body of folks who all the actors in Hollywood. One of the reasons why people tend to talk about the SAGs a lot is because very often they're one of the strongest indicators of who's going to go on to win the various acting prizes at the Oscars. So you've got equivalent categories and a few other stuff like best ensemble and things like that.
That's a weird one. We'll talk about that one.
Yeah. So, and of course, the number crunchers at the various major movie publications like Hollywood Reporter and Variety have spent their careers kind of lining up how accurate the winners of the SAG Awards are compared to the winners in the equivalent Oscar categories. And, you can spend forever trying to run the chances against each other and see, if there's a trend emerging in the past few contests. But this year we got a little bit of a weird collection of people picking up the awards, which has kind of thrown the predictions for the Oscars into a little bit more disarray than we're used to.
Which category were you thinking?
Basically, Best Supporting Actress and Best Actor.
Okay, so Best Actor, Rami Malek won for Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's between him and Christian Bale for this actor award.
Yeah.
Bale's cleaned up so far up until this point when Malek won, and he kind of throws a wrench into these things. Personally, I still think Christian Bale's better. I think his performance just had a bit more difficulty to it. I don't know. Now, do you think Rami Malek's the front runner for the Oscar now?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers don't lie. From what I was seeing, there's in the past, I think it's 24, 26 years, there's only been 5 times when the winner of the SAG Award has not also been the winner of the Best Actor Award at the Oscars. Mm-hmm. With the weight of the numbers on your side, you can pretty confidently predict Malek. And, maybe this will be the 6th time. You don't know. We're not saying that it's a 100% guarantee. But it seems like the folks that the voters at the SAG Awards go for end up being the exact same as the ones at the Oscars. And that's for one reason or another, as a body, as a group of colleagues, you can imagine it like one gigantic workforce. They see something in those performances that kind of sets them apart, even if the movies that contain those performances aren't that great. Another example would be this year's The Wife, which I saw a couple of days ago. That's an example of a movie that, as a movie, is it's not bad, but it's also not super remarkable. But it does contain this great performance from Glenn Close. And some people are saying that she's the front runner for Best Actress this year on the strength of all the previous work that she's done and never won for. But I mean, that does diminish a little bit all the stuff she's doing in The Wife. The problem is that people aren't getting too excited about The Wife, the movie, because it's not that awesome.
It's not that awesome. I think this has happened before, though, where the movies may not have a big audience, it may not gain traction with the mainstream crowd, or it just may not be good. And as a result, like a really good performance gets missed. I think you can look back to a lot of performances by stars who weren't stars who they are today. And so you can talk about Tom Hardy and Bronson, who I think was incredible, and or even Eric Bana and Chopper, which was like, I think, his breakout role. He was excellent in that one.
But then we come to Best Supporting Actress, where the winner at the SAGs was actually Emily Blunt for A Quiet Place. Not a bad performance, she definitely she did great work in that movie, and probably deserves an equal or an equivalent nomination, at least, in the same race at the Oscars.
Yeah, that list was bad.
Because she won the SAG, that means, and has no nomination at the Oscars, then we look to, well, who's going to win the equivalent Oscar? And right now it seems like, oddly enough, the front runner for the Oscar is Regina King from If Beale Street Could Talk, even though Regina King wasn't even nominated at the SAGs. So this is where stuff just kind of goes off the rails in terms of like accurate prediction, and you just kind of have to go with your gut. Which
I think goes to show, in my opinion, how awful the nomination list for Best Supporting Actress is for the Oscars.
Yeah.
Just based on just on the idea that Marina de Tavira, who was in Roma, is in this category. I don't see it. I don't think the role is big enough, and I don't think she was that outstanding. This is the one where this is a year where I think the favorite's going to be up for a lot of awards, but probably strike out on a lot of them, because Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz, I think, gave two of the best performances of the year, and it just seems like they might get a vote split. So yeah, this one's tough, but I'm with you. I think Regina King, who is really good in If Beale Street Could Talk, by the way, just based on what little screen time she had, she was really effective.
Yeah. And then the only other thing to really mention about the SAG before we move on to the DGA is just the Best Ensemble Award at the SAGs, which went to Black Panther. And in the past, there has been some connection between the winner of the SAG Ensemble Award going on to win Best Picture. But in such a messy year where there's no like head and shoulders front runner in a lot of the categories, and we're not seeing the signs of like any particular movie sweeping and getting like more than 5 awards, say, the chances of this following that kind of tradition of the SAG Ensemble Award indicating the actual Best Picture winner is pretty weak at this point, I would say.
Mm-hmm. But if you had to pick...
If I had to pick who was going to win Best Picture?
Yeah.
I would just say Roma.
This is a tough one. I definitely don't think Black Panther's the best film of the year.
No.
I wish they published these like award voting and publish the breakdowns so I have a better idea what's going on.
Oh, the actual like votes for each candidate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's about time they do that. I think every other award that I know of does that. That's like at some point they release some complete results. I don't know what to think of Black Panther winning Outstanding Performance by a Cast. I don't know if I would have given it to them, to be honest. I think Black Klansman was really good. The one kind of gripe I have about the SAGs is that there's a category that goes to the best performance by stunt ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
And Black Panther won for this. And I'm kind of perplexed because Mission Impossible Fallout was up for this award and it should have won.
I don't know. I mean, it's almost as though they're sort of this is kind of the Academy's way of, or that same body of voters. It's their way of saying that, they're recognizing the cultural achievement of Black Panther and the fact that it's a major $1 billion grossing movie with an all-black cast and, all those same things that people have been talking about for the past year. But whether it actually translates to the equivalent stuff at the Oscars, I'm not convinced yet. But, that's kind of why it's still fun to watch the Oscars, because after the stuff with Moonlight and La La Land a couple of years ago...
The funniest part is that with the Moonlight La La Land gaffe, I think that was the most talked the Oscars has ever had post-show.
Yeah, exactly.
And so for such a buttoned-down sort of society or guild, it's really funny that the one thing that went wrong is the one that everyone paid attention to. The one kind of question I'll throw at you is that moving on to Directors Guild Awards, Alfonso Cuarón's Roma won feature film. So what do you make of that now?
Well, again, this is where, tradition is that the person who wins the Directors Guild Award goes on to win Best Director at the Oscars. There's a pretty strong correlation there. And there's often a strong correlation between Best Director, also the winner of the DGA for Best Director also winning Best Picture, or that same film winning Best Picture.
When's the last time there were 2 different award winners?
It does happen often enough that it's you can't discount it. Like we're not saying that there's like a a one-on-one kind of relationship there. If that is the way things are going with like all of the other non-Guild Awards that Roma has won, the amount that it's been in the kind of pop culture conversation, now it wins the DGA, to me, that's more evidence that it's eventually going to take Best Picture over top of Black Panther.
So you think Black Panther is number 2?
Very possibly. I mean, I have a hard time seeing a body like the Academy going full in on Black Panther in that way, even with the ranked balloting system that Best Picture uses. Like, I can't see that large of a body of voters ranking Black Panther high enough that it can kind of get in on, say, like the second or third round of voting.
Right. But so if you had to rank them, how would you rank them?
Well, I'd probably put Black Panther, like, I don't know, towards the bottom half, because it's really not that, like, it's fine. I see. But and again, like, you come back constantly to like, how effective is it as a movie versus what does it represent for the industry? And I vividly remember last year when I saw it, I was like, there were parts of it, especially as good as the villain was, as strong as the writing was in certain sequences. It just felt like a typical Marvel movie at the end of the day.
I think Black Panther would be near the bottom for me. Vice is at the very bottom. And then the Green Book is at the bottom. And then you kind of have a mixed bag at the top. And I tend to agree with you. I think Roma is probably going to take this. Although I really can't commit to it because I feel like this is going to be a really weird one. Black Klansman is a personal favorite. I enjoyed Black Panther. The Favorite's a personal favorite as well, but I just don't think it's a type of film that a lot of people saw and a lot of people will appreciate. Yorgos Lanthimos makes some like really weird stuff that I think takes some time to get used to. The way he writes, the way he shoots, and the way his characters act, I think does take some sort of like reorienteering.
But yeah, that's kind of where we stand with the awards race. Of course, I've published my full list of predictions in all the major categories up on kinetoscope.ca. So if you're curious about my rationale for all the other categories, including all the acting races, the writing categories, documentary, best animated feature, best foreign language film, it's all up on the site right now. We've got a fun little plan to do up a post on the day after the Oscar telecast, going through some of the awards that we think should be awarded to these movies, and we'll try to have a bit of fun with that. So keep your eye out for that when the telecast is actually over. We haven't settled on a name for it yet for our little Kinetoscope specific awards. So if you have any ideas for that, let us know.
You can email us.
Yeah, email us, of course. And we'll hand out all of our handles and email addresses at the end of the episode in case you need them.
Or we can hand them out now, kinetoscopereviews@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Do it again at the end. Yeah. Why not plug ourselves twice?
Yeah, absolutely. But hopping over to some recent Netflix stuff. Netflix had a couple of like... that they're always releasing stuff. They've got it feels like every Friday of every week they're dropping a whole bunch of stuff, but there's certain ones that they're always kind of picking out and raising up as being the ones that they as a company are most excited about. And the three that kind of match that description recently are Velvet Buzzsaw, IO, and Polar. All very different films in terms of style and topic and all of that. But probably the one that grabbed the most attention, arguably, was the new Dan Gilroy film, Velvet Buzzsaw.
It's connected to his art. Something truly goddamn strange is going on!
Did you see this?
I did. I watched it last night.
It's not as terrifying as I thought.
No, it's not. It's pitched as kind of like a horror comedy. The log line for it is that a mysterious artist unknown to the art world dies in his apartment in Los Angeles, and his trove of artworks is discovered by a kind of vapid woman who lives in the same building as him, who happens to work for an influential art gallery. And contrary to the man's wishes, she decides to mount an art show, and the word about these paintings spreads throughout the art community and people become obsessed with them. But it becomes clear that the reason the man didn't want his artworks sold or viewed by anybody is that they seem to be imbued with some sort of like evil spirit or something. And the whole movie is a very obvious satire of the contemporary art world, how much money has been poured into it, how, there's so many people in this industry who really aren't engaging with the art in any meaningful way, but are just in the business to make money. There's not a lot of subtlety about what they're trying to get across with this movie, but there's some fun stuff in it.
I think there is some fun stuff, but I gotta say, like, this film was kind of disappointing considering what Dan Gilroy had brought to us with Nightcrawler, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
The problem with this movie isn't really the characters. I think the problem with this movie is what exactly Dan Gilroy's trying to go for.
Mm-hmm.
He's lampooning this like really highbrow, I don't even know what you call it.
Yeah, like art market,
Yeah, exactly.
The whole like business around like, artworks are discovered and then the artists achieve some sort of like Instagram fame and critics glom onto them and then there's a bidding war and
yeah, I think that's the more interesting part, like the sort of bidding war, the behind the scenes haggling and politics that goes into which artists get promoted, which artists get gallery space. But at the same time, this movie can't commit. It's not a thriller because there's not enough tension throughout and it's too slow in certain areas that don't really build up to anything.
And it's very divided between the characters that it chooses to follow. It kind of gives all of it's kind of got 3 or 4 main characters who are all kind of given equal billing. And
yeah, it's a very ensemble cast movie when I don't think it should be.
No.
I think this should be a pure Jake Gyllenhaal vehicle. One of the characters in this film is called Josephina, and she's the character that discovers the paintings. I didn't like her performance. I didn't think she was cast right. She has that cold bitchy look, which I like understand and get, but maybe it's part of her character, but her character is so, at the same time you want to feel sympathy, but at the same time she does some stuff that is just like, you really want her to die in the film. The deaths weren't extremely gruesome. Like in the trailer, I think you really saw some interesting stuff about seeing the artwork come to life and everything, but the way it's shown in the film, it almost feels like a Goosebumps movie. Like it's a little B movie.
I think this kind of gets to the root of several issues with the movie. None of the characters are developed enough that their deaths seem like poetic justice. We don't really know enough about the characters to for the movie to kind of find a clever or a witty way for them to be punished for their misdeeds. You kind of end up viewing the deaths in a kind of cold way because you don't have a relationship to that character in a way that counts, and B, the way that the movie chooses to punish them doesn't seem all that relevant. Like spoilers ahead, of course, please stop if you have not seen Velvet Buzzsaw or if you're planning to, but the way that they chose to Morph, the character played by Gyllenhaal, is they have his neck broken by this artwork that he interacts with very briefly in the very beginning of the film. And I mean, if anything, I would have expected like a different artwork to be the thing that comes after him, but instead it just seems like this one that he kind of wrote off essentially as a critic when he observed it in the opening scenes.
Or just like, if you're gonna spend so much time making all these deaths really bloody, especially the one with played by Toni Collette, Gretchen.
Yep.
Gyllenhaal kind of dies off screen. You don't see his face when he dies.
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of creepy. It's kind of funny. It's very weird. The lines, if the acting wasn't so good, the lines would be horrific. I don't know if you kind of paid attention to that, but some of the lines are really borderline cheesy. The whole idea, the whole ending about, again, spoiler alert, how a tattoo on Rene Russo's shoulder of a band that she used to be in called Velvet Buzzsaw ends up killing her because it starts spinning like a real song.
Yeah.
Basically bleeds her to death. I don't get what he's trying to like connect here. Like Velvet Buzzsaw, those two words mean nothing in the movie other than the fact it's a really important background tidbit.
Yeah, and even
did I miss something here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, she does mention it briefly in a conversation that she has in the beginning of the film with another character. But there's some bit of business about how she was in the band with a friend of hers who ended up like dying of an overdose, I believe, something like that. But yeah, there's no, like, we don't really understand where the connection is to that particular death.
This mysterious painter, his artworks kind of get scattered. And so at the end of the movie, you see this homeless dude find a collection of them and start hawking them for $5. And so the idea is that if you profit off these paintings, the paintings will come back and kill you. And so it's kind of, the movie ends with this homeless dude selling this painting to this unknowing couple. And the idea is that these murders and artwork murders will continue to perpetuate because people can't stop selling art. I hate that ending. It's very Jumanji, eh?
Well, it's Jumanji. It's just very, the mythology of the movie has not been adequately established, in my view. Like, we don't really understand why the artworks are killing anybody to begin with, other than the fact that the artist decided that they should not be seen by the public. But that's another character that they don't fully develop. We don't fully understand why that artist, that lunatic artist, cares so much about his work not being seen.
Yeah, there's like a supernatural quality to the paintings, but at the same time, like, it's not explained who or what it is or how it came to be.
Yeah, and the rules of the universe, essentially. Like,
Exactly.
Will the curse or whatever kill the hawker who's selling the painting? Will also kill the couple because they decided to buy it? I mean, they have no connection. They don't know the relevance of the painting. They're not they don't seem to be doing wrong in the universe of the film, by the rules that we understand in the film. They're not profiting off of it or anything. So it's a very murky ending.
Not the best.
No, but I mean, if you,
it's interesting.
I mean, if you've got nothing else to watch on Netflix, especially if you really like the actors involved. I mean, I will say that Gyllenhaal's performance is it's probably worth it just for Gyllenhaal. Essentially, I mean, his character is so eccentric and fun to watch that you can almost forgive some of the other flaws of the movie.
Of the 3 Netflix movies we mentioned, this is the best one, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah.
But it doesn't say a whole lot because if you've seen other Netflix films, including Roma, or even if you just go back like a couple years to Beasts of No Nation.
Yeah, totally.
They've produced some pretty good stuff. This is very middle of the road. I honestly expected more, but it's okay. It's not a film like Bright where like people kind of like hide behind closed doors and be like, look at Netflix fuck up.
Yeah.
Next film
would be Io. Now, I'm not all the way through watching this. I'm
okay. Where are you at though?
I'm probably like 70 minutes in or something.
What was it like before?
I was going to be a teacher, but we weren't ready for this.
You're going to the final Exodus launch?
That's right.
For my dad, leaving was just a last resort.
I saw dozens of people starve to death because of hope.
I won't make the same mistake twice.
Okay, it's pretty boring, eh?
It is, yeah. It really does not deliver.
So
no chemistry between the leads. I mean,
no characterization that really roots or makes you understand who they are and help you root for whatever their goals are, which I sometimes are a bit murky in my opinion.
And in terms of like a quick plot summary, Io is it's a sci-fi film. It's set in a version of Earth a couple of decades in the future when we've essentially exhausted all of our resources. We've polluted the planet beyond what can support life anymore.
Yeah, typical apocalyptic stuff,
Humans have all fled to a space station orbiting around the one of the moons of Jupiter, the titular Io. But the story follows this young woman, a young scientist who's living in one of the last remaining habitable spots on Earth. She comes across another fellow lone survivor, played by Anthony Mackie, and the two of them have to team up to try to get to the last space shuttle that's leaving for the outer space colony. But yeah, like the movie basically consists of a lot of scenes of them sitting around talking about stuff, staring rather without a whole lot of emotion at each other, delivering their lines in a very flat manner. There's an almost comical scene partway through where The plot kind of forces the two of them together. There's theoretically like a romantic connection there, but, you know, Anthony Mackie's character is quite a bit older than Margaret Qualley, so it feels a little bit gross.
That's true. It's true.
He kind of says to her, like, she goes to like to kiss him, but he's not having it, or he feels uncomfortable, and he says, I can't, and then she says, you have to, and I'm like, wait, what? He has to? Why does he have to? Is this like a survival of the species situation, an Adam and Eve kind of situation? Like, the movie does not qualify that bit of dialogue at all. We don't understand why she feels that way, or if she's trying to get pregnant by him, or it's bizarre.
This also turned out to be a lot worse than I expected. So we've had a lot of movies in the past about post-apocalyptic landscapes, and also movies about sort of loneliness, like The Last Human on Civilization type. It tries to be that, but it never again fully commits. I think it never takes its time to really set things up. It's actually like it's less than 2 hours, right?
It's only like 90 minutes. Yeah
exactly. So when you want a movie that really depends on the leads, because there's only 4 characters in this movie, 3 even, if you really want this to work, you really got to let the relationship kind of simmer, and with a 90-minute runtime you can't do that. And as you mentioned, the 2 leads don't have any chemistry at all, so it ruins it. You're not rooting for these characters. The plot pacing is really terrible.
Oh, yeah.
There are long stretches where you're like, if this is a 90-minute movie, you really got to get going. Because, like you, I got about halfway in, and I kind of said to myself, I have no idea what's going on. It's a very distilled, very bare bones kind of sci-fi solo adventure.
That setup can work if there's a bit of energy to the plot.
It can. It absolutely can. A lot of other films have done the same thing on a very low budget and have done it superbly. This is a really big misstep from Netflix. Apparently this movie has been on the shelf for a year or two though before they released it. So, I mean, this is one of those movies that you're just kind of like, I hope no one sees it. Let's just kind of release it under the radar. But I feel like there's nothing under the radar with Netflix. They're a huge growing company, so they've got a huge target on their back, and everything they do will be examined under a microscope. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but in the original casting was Elle Fanning in this role.
Okay.
You don't like her?
Well, no, I like Elle Fanning, but I mean, that would have been... Elle Fanning has almost like a more immature kind of look than Margaret Qualley.
Yeah, she's less like salt of the earth type.
Well, that and like, you know, she just looks younger than Margaret Qualley, so like a romantic relationship between her and Mackie's character would feel even grosser. In my view.
It wasn't Mackie then; it was Elle Fanning and Diego Luna, which is still like a pretty good age gap. But
it's still like 20 years.
But Diego Luna's always got the creepy mustache going on, so that one I believe a bit more. How he's just like some dude that just lands and starts being creepy towards this really young girl.
Yeah.
If you're browsing Netflix, this is a movie you can really skip over. I really don't think you're not missing anything. At least with Velvet Buzzsaw, there are performances and certain ideas, certain sequences that are, I think, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, the third film that sort of was released in succession was Polar.
As you know, we manage the investments of our employees. If a former agent dies after retirement, their $8 million goes back to the company.
This is a bad idea.
Did you see this one?
I did not. I think I'm still very interested in seeing it, even if you end up telling me that it's kind of bad. I love Mads Mikkelsen, and I kind of have a...
He is great, eh?
I have a thing for these kind of assassin movies.
Okay, yeah. So even if you like assassin movies, I wonder how I'd pitch this to you.
Okay.
It is extremely brutal.
Okay.
In an Atomic Blonde kind of sense. There's quite a few torture scenes. There's quite a bit of blood. There's a lot of bones being snapped, and there's a lot of gunplay. And
I can take it.
And the blood is like kind of Tarantino-esque comedy in a sense that's very stylized sometimes.
Right.
But there are about like, I'd swear, like 100 headshots in the film.
Okay.
So anyway, this film is based on a comic series, and it's directed by a Swedish director known for making music videos. His name is Jonas Åkerlund. And if you know music video directors, they really edge you, you know, they really move at a fast clip because they're used to having time constraints.
Mm-hmm.
So Polar is kind of his chance to really stretch things out and let it breathe a little. I don't think he really does that. It's a bit of mile a minute. So it stars Mads Mikkelsen as an assassin who's about to retire. He's 2 weeks away from retiring, and he works for this syndicate called Damocles, and it's run by Matt Lucas. Do you know who he is? Matt Lucas is the guy who played Tweedledee and Tweedledum in Alice in Wonderland. He's the guy.
Yeah, and he's had a recurring role on Doctor Who for a season or two.
Yes, yeah, him. So he's perfect for this role because he plays a caricature. He wears like this like bright yellow suit that has with a yellow shirt and yellow tie, and he's got this crazy hair, and he's got a scar on his face, and he's got glasses with yellow lens in him, and he looks straight from a comic book. And so the whole point of the movie is that Matt Lucas wants to kill Mads Mikkelsen because Mads Mikkelsen's about to retire and he's going to take a lot of money from the company as his pension, and Matt Lucas doesn't want that to happen. Pretty standard stuff, I'd say.
John Wick ripoff, but on like ecstasy.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of John Wick gunplay in there. It has also a very strict adherence to reloading.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So I think people will like that. The problem with this film is pacing, and two, it's not for me. If you want to watch something like this, I would say Smoking Aces is quite similar. Every character is introduced with a title card and a name and everything. Not unlike Suicide Squad, actually. Although it's miles better than Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But I feel like it borders on torture porn.
Oh, yeah.
There are parts in it where I feel like go on for too long, especially the part where Matt Lucas starts torturing Mads Mikkelsen. But that could just be a personal preference, because these type of movies don't usually catch my attention.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's a line to be walked there where if you're getting to the level that, say, Tarantino got to in Hateful Eight, where the violence has gone beyond style and is just kind of rubbing it in your face with no real discernible purpose, that's when I start to lose interest, and I'm like, yeah, I can do without it. But I might still watch Polar just out of curiosity. I do, as I mentioned before, I do love Mads Mikkelsen in pretty much anything.
Yeah, so he was great in this, and he definitely drives the show. All I can say is it should be thrilling, it should be exciting. In the end, you kind of walk away being kind of disgusted.
Yeah.
I will say though, like, I can see why people like this film, because I think there's a groundswell of support of people who like this, but critics don't. If you like this type of movie, if you like Mads Mikkelsen, I think you'll find it somewhat enjoyable. But it's not a movie you'll go back to watching, and it's not like John Wick where you're kind of amazed by the choreography or the gunplay.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah, so of those three, then Velvet Buzzsaw would probably be the real recommendation there, even though we can't like heartily endorse Velvet Buzzsaw. But if any of those are popping up, you know how Netflix likes to kind of force one on you when you first log into the app, I would go with Velvet Buzzsaw over the others.
Yeah, if I had to rank them, I'd go Velvet Buzzsaw, Polar, and Io. I think it's a pretty good effort in each of these genres. Keep in mind that these projects don't attract the biggest names or the biggest directors. But if Netflix can keep, producing content and show that, hey, we can give you a lot more creative control than all the other studios, like we gave Alfonso Cuarón with Roma, then maybe we'll start seeing a lot more higher quality projects.
Yeah. And I mean, they're making relationships with some pretty big names. They've got a Scorsese picture coming out towards the end of this year that they spent a ludicrous amount of money on. So they've got plenty of big names, and they seem to add more by the week, but there's still going to be a lot of this kind of stuff kind of filling in the gaps. And, that's where you come to us to help you sort out the good stuff from the bad stuff for all those in-between titles. But a couple of quick other things we wanted to cram in towards the end of this episode today. There's been this press tour on the go the past week, hosted by the Television Critics Association, the TCA. This is kind of like inside baseball stuff, but it happens every year, and it does give us a taste of what each individual TV network is working on for the coming season. And a couple of standouts so far this week, aside from announcements of like new seasons of The Simpsons or new seasons of Modern Family, all those big network shows. We did get a few little tidbits about a couple of things that I'm really interested in, namely Nicholas Winding Refn's new project. Of course, he of course from movies like Drive and Only God Forgives, Neon Demon, Bronson that Jason mentioned before. But this time he's going to be doing a foray into TV, which of course is the hot new thing that everyone's doing. And he's going to be making this project called Too Old to Die Young, which will be a 10-episode series set in the underworld, starring Miles Teller, with a kind of Japanese Yakuza gangster kind of subplot on the go. So we can expect it to be probably pretty violent, very stylized, no surprises there from Nicholas Winding Refn. But I'm really curious to see what he does with a different format compared to the movies that he's done up until now.
He's just going to take his time and put in a couple more songs he likes.
Yeah.
A couple more
synth pop.
Pools of Blood. Yeah, synth pop here and there. I still have not seen anything he's done since that Ryan Gosling movie, Drive. I didn't see Only God Forgives, which I've heard really mixed things about. But as always, I'm always intrigued by anything on TV, any miniseries. Mm-hmm. I think the potential to tell stories and the potential to create like this fully realized world with characters is a lot better than something that has to be contained in 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. And, I think that's why a lot of these writer-director auteurs are turning to TV, because it does give them, even if they're only doing like a limited series of 10 episodes, 8 episodes or less, they can, if they have the protection of the Netflix brass to kind of do what they want, sometimes you get some really interesting stuff out of it. Mm-hmm. So whether you like Nicholas Winding Refn or not, it's cool to see more of these auteurs kind of testing out new formats. Apparently, each of the episodes in this series are going to be 90 minutes long, so they're going to be like mini movies in and of themselves. So fingers crossed that he doesn't indulge himself too much and just kind of wastes a lot of time in each episode, kind of lingering on sweaty faces and neon scenes and blood dripping off Yakuza swords or something. I don't know what Yakuza uses to kill each other.
Samurai swords, obviously. Have they cast this yet?
They've got Miles Teller attached to star. And then Jenna Malone is coming back. She's worked with Nicholas Winding Refn before. John Hawkes, who, he's one of those character actors, that guy who was in That Thing.
Yes.
You see him and you're like, oh, yeah, I've seen that guy before. And then the other show that kind of got a little bit of attention at the TCA press tour that I'm kind of interested in is the spin-off TV show from the Taika Waititi movie, What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
So I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but it's like a mockumentary set in Wellington, New Zealand. Came out 4 or 5 years ago.
It's what got him Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, basically. I think up until that point, he'd been working on shows like Flight of the Conchords with Jermaine Clement.
Yep, I remember that show.
And he did do a movie called Hunt for the Wilder People in between, before getting Thor Ragnarok. But we haven't even mentioned that it's a vampire show. So it follows these various vampires who, some of them are like hundreds of years old, some of them are only like a couple dozen years old, but they're all rooming together in a house in Wellington in the movie and trying to get along with each other. And you've got this camera crew that's following them around, and of course they get up to all kinds of hijinks and they argue over who's going to clean the blood off the dishes in the sink. Things like that. But it's just, again, such a unique voice, and it's fun to think that they're going to spin this off into a TV universe and, expand the mythology of the show quite a bit. It feels like there's a lot of flexibility there to do some fun stuff. I don't know if this has, it's coming out from FX. So
FX has been buying a lot of properties recently.
Yeah, they've made some really fun stuff in the past few years. They're responsible for shows like Archer and kind of countercultural, edgier stuff. So it feels like a good fit for a show like this.
They're buying a lot of crowd-pleasing films, though, eh?
Yeah. Yep.
Like FX Networks, they bought Venom, Bohemian Rhapsody, Spider-Verse, Green Book. And last year, they bought a ton, too. So that includes, I think, Fallen Kingdom, the Jurassic World movie, Hotel Transylvania, Pacific Rim. So it's going to be interesting. We had the format wars, we had the cable wars, and now we're having the streaming wars.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this shakes out. But it's not getting any cheaper for us, I'll tell you that, Rob.
No, there's always a new streaming service that demands to be subscribed to. All the networks are doing them now. Even like telecom companies like AT&T are wading into it apparently. So
well, they have DirecTV and they're trying to turn DirecTV into that, I think.
Sure, yeah.
So
So maybe it's not a huge jump, but yeah.
But I mean, a lot of them fail too. Like, look at Shomi.
Yeah, totally. So Showme's for anyone who's not in Canada and listening to the show, Showme was one of a handful of streaming services that were kind of launched to contend with Netflix, and some of them signed deals to acquire titles that Netflix hadn't, and there was a brief little war between which services had what titles and where you had to go to find certain movies and TV shows. But after I think it just didn't really connect with people here in Canada. Didn't build enough of an audience, and it ended up flopping.
Well, yeah, because they didn't do a good job of advertising it. They didn't have any good titles, and it's basically like a lot of telecom companies. I wouldn't say a lot. There's only like 3 big telecom companies in Canada, and everyone hates them. So any product they try to push, everyone's just like, no.
Yeah.
Because every time you call them, they're always trying to sell you something else.
Yeah. But then you compare that to another streaming service here in Canada, Crave, which again was spawned out of one of the big telecom companies, in this case, Bell. But they seem to have not only vacuumed up the stuff that Showme left behind, but has added just enough premium content from certainly premium cable companies in the States like HBO to really position themselves as having those kind of those few killer shows that everyone wants access to that might be annoying to try to find on a pirating site. In a semi-connected train of thought, we've that kind of leads us to another kind of industry topic, and that's the kind of ongoing merger between Disney and Fox, which is it's kind of got an aspect of the old history of the industry and kind of their attempts to contend with this new streaming war that's ongoing. Because you've got like FX, which we just mentioned being the network behind What We Do in the Shadows, they're actually going to be gobbled up by Disney as part of this Fox merger. And there was a report yesterday or the day before about how this might lead to actually 4,000 lost jobs in Hollywood and across the broader industry, which is kind of a bit of a spooky thing to think about.
Well, welcome to the big leagues. This is what happens. Companies merge and people lose jobs or get laid off. Like, this is pretty standard practice. I think this is just going to be more commonplace.
Yeah, it very well might. But I think the point that probably the best piece to read on this is a recent one from the Hollywood Reporter, where they're talking about like employees watching nervously as Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, and Lachlan Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch's son, and the guy who's in charge of a lot of the Fox properties these days, are seen like walking around the Disney backlot and the Fox backlot, and employees are nervously emailing and texting each other, being like, "Oh, which building are they going to? Are they trying to scope out people to fire?" Like, and then reports of like executives never showing up to work in the morning, and parking spaces being left empty outside of prominent executives' offices and these kind of things. So, a lot of whispers going around. Nobody's really sure what it's going to mean, who's going to get cut. But yeah, you're essentially dealing with one of the 6 big studios gobbling up the other, or one of the other 6. So it goes from 6 to 5, and there is going to be a lot of overlap between the positions in this new giant company, and they're going to be looking for efficiencies and all of that. So they're going to have to let some people go, whether those are executives or creative people or industry people or like technical people, labor unions and those kinds of things. Yeah, it's an interesting time, but it's partially in response to this whole streaming war. Disney's got Disney Plus on the way, and they're trying to position themselves in a way that will make people not only go to see their big budget blockbuster stuff in theaters, but then pay attention to all of the Disney Plus exclusive stuff that comes out on that platform.
The other thing to think about too is when mergers and acquisitions happen, it's usually because companies don't think they can grow as fast organically as if just buying another company outright. Mm-hmm. I think this is a big shakeup in Hollywood. We must keep in mind Hollywood's very resistant to change, And a lot of their trades and people work in the movie industry are also unionized. I'm more interested on the labor side of what happens, but people losing their jobs, like, you know what, it sucks. But look at any industry, this is where we're going. Look at the auto industry. Jesus.
Jobs are being automated. People are figuring out ways, or companies are figuring out ways of doing the same with less people. So yeah, it's just part of the whole like broader economic shift that's underway, which I'm not qualified to talk about in any detail.
It'll be fine. We'll still get our movies. Don't worry, Rob. The only issue I have, my biggest fear, is that Disney and all these big companies, they tend to really take no chance with their films. When they try to be risky, it doesn't always pan out. But at the same time, they're also risk averse because they have so many shareholders and so much money at stake. And so what you don't want to happen is have all these like franchises and reboots and sequels and all that are all basically the same thing. I don't want to hear anything more about some sort of cinematic universe that some studio is trying to attempt. I'm done with that. So I'm interested to see how it changes the movie making process in the future. So again, maybe a huge win for Netflix that they can convince filmmakers and the actors to come over to Netflix because they can give them more creative control. Yeah, and they're willing to take risks on concepts that would not fly in this, behemoth Disney monstrosity that's being constructed. Of course, Disney does not like to make anything with more than a PG-13 rating, so there's going to be any projects that were belonging to Fox, any characters that were belonging to Fox that are more oriented towards adults and would probably have come out under an R rating, probably going to get, shelved or reconfigured in some way. But didn't Disney say they were going to continue the R-rated stuff?
Oh, yeah, but I mean, it's not like they're going to jump wholeheartedly into it and suddenly we're going to start seeing like Disney R-rated movies in any kind of volume. I think they're going to be very choosy over what they make.
I actually think the problem with Disney is that they focus group the crap out of their stuff and then make opinions based on that, trying to appease everyone. But when you try to appease everyone, you satisfy no one.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing special or super creative about what they do. It's just a way of basically feeding the data.
And after a while, the data is like, what do you mean you're not making robot porn for me? Like, I'm becoming self-aware. I need to be stimulated too. God damn it. And then they're like, what have we done? What have we created?
I think you've watched too many sci-fi movies. But I don't know. Like, if one of these days they can make robot maids, I might get one. You can clean up my condo for me.
Yeah, so just make sure that you give her a Christmas bonus or something.
Like an extra microchip or something. A new USB port. I don't know. Faster charging station.
Oh, Master, thank you so much.
I don't know if they talk in that voice.
Well, you can probably program it with whatever voice you want. If you want Charlize Theron talking to you out of a robot voice, then you can have it.
Oh, yes, definitely.
All right. Well, that about does it for this episode. We've gone on quite a journey together. This episode, everything from the Oscars to strange sci-fi worlds and murderous art, and all the way through the strange annals of insidery industry news. But thank you for coming along with us on this ride. And of course, head on over to kinetoscope.ca, where we've, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, we've posted my full predictions of all of the major categories in this year's Oscars. So make sure you read through that before the show, see how accurate I am. But until next time, my name is Robert Snow in Toronto.
And my name is Jason Chen in Vancouver. Be sure to check out our website, kinetoscope.ca. Email us, kinetoscopereviews@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at JasonChen16. He's at JRobertSnow. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.